So everyone, my name is Nam, and the one I'm going to my speech on is modern technology is negatively affecting our education. So my first point is that modern technology ruins the teaching of literature. As everyone knows, when we go online, when we text, when we tweet, when we do Instagram, we're always using these abbreviations, LOL or FML, we know all of that. We stop using these terms and languages that we learned when we were younger. Obviously, we don't use LOL in real life. I know some people do. And it's becoming a habit, and it's becoming this part of our speech that is not really part of what our education is teaching us. One of the biggest things that I actually suffered due to these modern technology, due to Facebook, due to texting, is grammar. My grammar sometimes, when I write essays or when I talk, my grammar tends to actually be more towards this technology base instead of this structure that we were taught when we were in elementary and middle school. So grammar is one of the things that are actually negatively being affected because of modern technology. Also, logic and narrative is one of the others. As we know, when we actually do this texting or write someone through like Facebook or something like that, we're always using these wrong punctuations. We're not using the commas right. We're not using the periods right. Semicolons. Some kids these days don't even know what the semicolon is anymore, other than using it for winky faces on texting and stuff like that. So we're starting to lose this value on these punctuations that are actually important, and that makes the words flow and actually makes sense when we're writing essays. Also, lack of vocabulary is the other. We actually tend to use, in research that was based in Marquise University, it shows that through these modern technologies, kids are actually using the same words. They're recycling words over and over again. As we know, there's words that are actually really popular and trendy throughout the era goes. YOLO was big last year, and it's continuing to change to this era where these kind of words are being recycled, and we're not really using these words that are in the dictionary or in the news or in Times or anything like that. That's actually deep and actually are the adult words, as we would say it. Those kind of things are being actually falling apart. And that's also in Marquise University, research shows that because it's modern technologies, literature is being affected. Kids go to school, they learn literature. However, the structure and writings of essays, forming essays, all these structures that the teachers are teaching us in the lower education, K through 12, is being affected because kids are now using phones, emails, Facebook, anything, those kind of modern technology that doesn't really need a structure. We don't need a structure to write someone a Facebook message saying this long comment or something like that. We don't need those kind of structures anymore. Second is that, second point, along with it's ruining the literature, is that modern technology is actually ruining our thinkings. These days, I feel like, according to Lemon, he's a writer for Dallas Star, a newspaper in Texas. He did a research and it was proven that actually people are becoming more lazy and people are thinking less and less because of the modern technology we have in our hands today. Education and school itself is supposed to teach us how to interact with different people, how to work with different people that are different from us. However, this technology now these days, we go to cashiers, we go to restaurants, and we're paying, exchanging money, and we're always on our phones. We're not even talking to the cashier or the people behind us. We're always just on our phones, ignoring people. And the thing that's supposed to teach us in our school is to interact and how to talk with different people, how to interact in this person-to-person interactions, and the technology is actually ruining that. So K-12 education is being hit really hard on that kind of part where kids in younger ages are now no longer being human interactions anymore. So that was one of the biggest things in the K-12 education. And like I said, on Marquise University, a professor, McDaniels, actually wrote the technology in classrooms. As you can see right now, probably most of us have our phones out. Some of us have our laptops out in classrooms. And the professors want us to think like, oh, you're probably doing research, or you're probably looking up something I said. But the truth is, probably, we're checking Facebook, we're checking Instagram, we're checking Twitter, we're checking our emails. And these technologies that we have in our hands are not being used for educational purposes in classrooms. Rather, it's being used for our own benefit and for our own entertainment. And that is why McDaniels, a professor at Marquise University, says professors in colleges are now not letting students use cell phones or laptops in classrooms. And the reason we have a laptop is to take notes in class or work on PowerPoints, presentations, and now we're going back to the standard writing notes with pencil and pen, then what's the point of having a laptop at all in the first place because we can't take notes in classrooms? So Marquise University McDaniel said that the modern technology in the classroom are no longer being effective anymore, and we're going back to the standard of just pen and a pencil. So I hope you guys, after listening to my points, agree with me that modern technology is ruining our education in the 21st century of this I generation, as people say.
Hungry.
All right, now you label the main claim. It's a very broad claim. I think that's going to be a little bit problematic during the presentation. There's not really a layout of what the secondary issues are going to be. It's similar to what we just had. You signpost the first point as if you're previewing, but you actually start the first point right then. However, in the body of the speech, you do indicate when you get to supporting issue, another supporting issue. So there is some structure to the presentation. The controversy, I think people understand some elements of the controversy. I've got one big element here that I think might be problematic. You're suggesting that it's hurting literature. To me, it sounds like you're talking about literacy, people's ability to read and write, as opposed to the quality of the writing that people read and study. I have no idea how technology in the classroom is going to hurt my ability to study Shakespeare, understand Emily Bronte or Dickinson or the Jane Eyre or Moby Dick or any of those other pieces of literature that people study. I really think that you're talking about a literacy issue rather than literature itself. So I think that you needed to make that claim a lot, because all of your supporting points are really talking about how people write, whether or not they can spell, whether or not they've developed adequate grammar, and those are all literacy concepts rather than literature-based issues. You've got a lot of hypothetical examples that you present in the presentation, but there's not much follow-up on those hypothetical examples. I didn't hear any statistics presented on the frequency of mistakes that people make in their writing, or whether there's been a change in, for instance, rating scores in SAT exams or standardized tests over the years. I would assume that if we've had this technology for 20 years and people have been doing these kinds of things, and we are in fact losing our ability to have a diverse vocabulary or to put things together grammatically in a way that makes sense, that we would see that being reflected in the test scores, and that might be one way of measuring that, but I don't get any data like that. 90% of the information that you cite comes from the Marquise University, and McDaniels, I guess it is the author of that particular piece. I don't know if it's a study or if it's just an opinion piece of McDaniels. You do want to give us a little bit more credibility on that author so that we know why it is we should be listening to them. The biggest problem, though, that I had with the evidence is that it never sounds like you're giving us a quote. It sounds like you're paraphrasing what you believe was said in the article and giving us your interpretation of what was being said. That's what your claim should be. The evidence itself should be a direct piece of testimony, and I think that that was not anything at all what was going on here. You mentioned recycled words or the use of technology in the classroom with a lot of distractions, and again, I think all of those things are likely to be occurring, but the idea that they're having some impact, you don't have any way of measuring it or giving us some way to judge and see how significant and important it is. I'm not all that worried that people use LOL when they text somebody. And I'm not even sure I'm worried about it if somebody made the comment to me, if I made some dumb joke and somebody looked at me and said, that wasn't very funny, LOL. I don't think that would bother me. So we've added a word to the vocabulary. Now, what you have to show to me is that we've stopped being able to find other vocabulary terminology or express ourselves in other ways, and I'm not sure that you've done that. All right, thank you.